everybody, welcome to my channel, Taylor Happens. Find out what's happening with Taylor. And today, for my first video, I'm going to do my quiet time routine. Only because it would have been really helpful and early in my faith if I knew how to go about my quiet time. But just because I've done it for a little bit, I kind of know how I like to do it, what works for me, and which way is best. So if you'd like to see, let's get into it. So I would say for me, my quiet time is just time where I get to shut off and focus on God. I'm able to literally quiet things around me and just rest in Him, hear from Him and speak to Him, show Him how I'm feeling, connect with Him. And for me, it's kind of like an edifying space where I get to, know what's on His heart. And so the first thing I do in my quiet time is I typically do praise and worship, just because my attention span is usually at a 0. So I need to intentionally try to focus on Him. And so praise and worship just help me to meditate on the words I'm hearing, musically kind of meet with Him in a way, and I'm able to show love and gratitude towards Him during my praise and worship. And it's just a space where I know I'm leading myself into my quiet time because I'm focusing on Him intentionally. And I also find that when things are going not so good, or it's hard, or it's tough, my perspective changes, because in praise and worship, I'm able to focus on Him and recognize how big He is in comparison to all the small little things that are going around me that seem big at the moment. But when in praise and worship, they don't seem that big at all. So praise and worship is usually my first thing I do. And then, okay, I will say sometimes I do journal before, just because I need to, that can also help me center myself. If I give up everything that's happening around me, all the things I'm thinking, just kind of purge out everything and journal it. And that way I'm able to make room for Him, surrender all those things, make room for Him, and then He can speak to me and fill me up. And that way it's not like He's trying to fit in on top of all the stuff happening inside of me. He's just filling up that space that I removed all those things from. So I would say the second thing I do in my quiet time is I do my devotional. So I could do a Bible plan, I could read a Bible chapter, some scriptures that I want to focus on, things like that, kind of the meat of my quiet time. That way I can hear what the Lord's trying to say to me. So for a Bible chapter, I'd probably write down the sequences of what's happening, what's going on, the characters, and then I'll apply it to myself, how it applies to my life, what the Lord may be trying to say to me, things like that. And that just kind of gives me an idea of maybe what I should focus on in that quiet time and things like that. So that's the really big part of it. And I also need the scripture during that time as well, so that I can meditate and then pray on it later, and let the Lord speak to me through that as well. So second part is definitely my Devos, Bible chapters, Bible plan. And the Bible app, I think it's the YouVersion Bible app, is amazing for Bible plans. I love that thing. I'm not that good at planning, so having a Bible plan set out for me, it makes it a lot easier, a lot simpler, and a lot quicker for me. And then the last thing I do is I ask the Lord to speak to me. So this is different in a way. It's kind of like where He kind of tells me what He's thinking, what's on His heart, what is His priority to talk about. Because sometimes I can do a whole quiet time, I can do my scripture, yada yada yada, and then He will touch on something totally different, not because He wasn't paying attention to what I was trying to focus on, just because something might be more of a priority to Him in that moment. So I like to end out my quiet time with that, just because He can tell me something I wasn't even thinking about. And then I know that's what's on His heart and what He wants to focus on right now. So that's important for me. Sometimes I do it after journaling because I want to know His thoughts as well. But it just depends on the day, the time, how I'm feeling, what's going on. But it just, you just flow kind of by what you feel, what you think. And that usually works out for me well, just because I want to know what He's thinking as well, because I tend to talk a lot, so I need to make space to listen to Him so I know what He's thinking. I can't just keep talking, because then I don't know what He wants for me. So that's important for me, and it's important for me as well just because I need guidance and direction. So if I make space to listen to Him to guide me, then that makes it a lot easier, and I know what to focus on for the rest of the day. So yeah. I also have full tips that would have helped me in my quiet time in the beginning. So the first thing I would say is that you don't have to have the same location, same time, same order, same structure. You don't have to do the same things every day. You can do it however you want to do it, really. It just depends. Also, that helps to not feel like a chore, because sometimes a quiet time is like a chore, and I don't like that. So I would say one day I might not even do all these things that I mentioned. I'll just do prolonged prayer. Prolonged prayer and then listen to Him. Or one day I'll just focus on praise and worship and make sure I get scripture to meditate on. So I don't always journal. It just depends on how I feel. But all these things are typically what a great, a great quiet time looks for me, I would add in all those things that I mentioned before. So it doesn't have to be the same every day, and you can one day be in your room doing quiet time, the next day you can be at a park doing your quiet time. You know, just kind of, it's just a time for you to meet with him, so you can change it up. That way you can be more consistent, and it doesn't feel like, oh, I have to do this, oh, I can only be at this space. You know, it just changes for you. So don't worry about that. Your quiet time does not have to be like 45 minutes to an hour. Because in the beginning I was like, dang, I gotta spend all this time sitting here talking to God. And that's not how it's supposed to be. You can spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. It just depends on what you're doing that day with God, what you want to speak about, what he wants to talk to you about. Sometimes it's prolonged prayer, and that may take longer. Praise and worship, I just want to praise and worship for an hour. It just depends on the day and what I'm trying to do, or maybe how my schedule is, things like that. But it's just important for me just to meet with him. So it doesn't matter if it's 10 minutes or 45 minutes. It doesn't make him real holy to have a long quiet time. It just depends that day. So I think just make sure that you make time for him, but it doesn't have to be the 45 minutes allotted every day. I find that it's very hard to do 45 minutes of even exercise. So like the fact that I'm like, oh, I have to do 45 minutes. You don't have to, because then you start worrying about the time, and that ain't it. I'm not putting my God on a time, okay? Okay. The last thing I would say that I didn't really think about when I first started my quiet time, like, it's important to be consistent and prioritize your quiet time, but it's okay to miss a day. I would say that I know how I am when I miss a day or two, or I miss a week, and I'm not the nicest as I usually would be. I don't usually feel as good. And typically when I'm in a good season, sometimes I might miss more quiet times than I would if I'm just going through and I need Jesus every day. Typically it would just be that I miss a day because I don't feel like it. My schedule's a little packed, things like that. And then I don't do it. But I know for a fact that I need to do it, so I will prioritize it so that I can. And I know at the end of the day, he doesn't condemn me for missing a day or two. You know what I'm saying? So just make sure that you try to prioritize it. That way you can be consistent in that. And one thing I will say is that when you're going through a good season and you just don't do your quiet time as much, I say that I typically know that a hard time might be coming. So I need to build myself up and guard my heart with the word every day and let it build upon itself, so that when something comes that I didn't think about, I'm prepared for it. So quiet times are important. And he doesn't condemn us for missing, but it's very helpful to us to connect with our Father and pay attention to what he's saying. And, you know, he may tell me something that will let me know that, oh, this is going to happen later on. So I need to make sure I focus on this scripture. I need to pay attention to this. So just make sure you kind of know what you want to do in your quiet times. And that way you can make it as easy, quick as possible if you want to. You can connect to him the way that you want to. And it doesn't have to be super long. And you can do it more consistently. It can be different places, things like that. You can meet with him anywhere. So that's all I have for today. I hope you liked this video. I hope it was helpful. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in my next video.